The chemistry between all of the actors and actresses, I thought was insane. That guy is it Domhnall? What's the guy's name?
The ginger. Is that a polite
guy.
term? I'm not sure if. Oh, it's about time.
It's
Danny.
about goddamn time. What's going on, everybody? Critic and the Common Man here again with another review. Up today, a very sad movie, very powerful movie, a very good movie. Chris, this was your pick for this week. About Time. I had never heard of this one.
Really?
I'm starting to figure you out a little bit, man, I think. I'm starting to figure you out a little bit. First, it was Life Itself. You kind of warmed us up with that one. You're trying to test my limits here as far as how sad of a movie can I take. Mm-hmm. And then you throw this at us, dude, About Time. And let me just say something right now. First of all, this is your one and only spoiler warning. All right, you're not going to get another one. Every Critic and the Common Man review that we do has spoilers. So if you haven't seen About Time, even though it came out a long time ago, I think, this is your one and only spoiler warning. Next thing and first thing, they didn't have to do that to us, man. They didn't have to fucking do that to us, man. Him walking with his dad on the beach like that, man, they didn't have to do that to us.
They didn't have to do it. They really didn't have to do it.
Listen to me, man. Listen to me. I said this after Life Itself, and I don't know how somehow I've let you get back into this. You are not allowed to pick movies anymore, dude. You're not allowed. The first movie that you picked messed me up. If you guys have not seen Life Itself, go watch it. And now, just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, they go back in time and they're walking together on the beach. And I was doing so good up until that point, man. And then I broke. Right there, dude. That was it.
It's sad, man. It's yeah. But then at the same time, it's beautiful also because the whole thing about the movie, the whole theme, the message behind it is that you can't run away from what is meant to happen. You know,
yeah, it's a great movie, man, and it's very powerful.
Yeah. You have to take every day one at a time, just like everybody else, like no matter what.
Right. The message is definitely there. It's on the nose throughout the whole thing. I mean, they're basically narrating through and kind of telling you the message as it goes. What do you think of this one? Why did you decide to pick it? Obviously, this was a great movie, but was this pretty impactful for you the first time you saw it? And why'd you pick it for the podcast, man?
Yeah, the first time I saw this movie 2 years ago, I want to say maybe a year ago. I broke down crying, dude. It was so sad. I love my parents so much. And this movie, like for me, anything like that, anything that has to do with like familial bonds is totally just an easy way to get to my core. So yeah, I remember watching this and I remember like talking to my dad after, and I was just really sad because this movie can be a little heavy.
Oh, dude, this will keep you up at night. Like this, I remember we watched this, me and my wife watched this, and we were like, you start to realize, of course, because the movie forces you to think about it. You start to realize how much of your day-to-day life you're just kind of on autopilot and cruise control. And it's rare because how often can you say that you've, stopped and actually paid attention to the here and now and said, okay, like I'm doing it right now. Like I'll remember this moment a week from now because I'm here, I'm present, I'm thinking about it because of this movie. But I couldn't tell you what was going on, at work the other day in the middle of the day. I couldn't tell you what I was thinking about. It's just a blur. It's gone. And then you watch this movie and it kind of forces you to ask these existential questions like, could you let go? Could you ever stop going back in time? Like, how many times would you have to live before you could finally just let go and give that up? And it's just sad. And of course, then you start asking like, well, what happens after we die? It's just, this movie will have you thinking existentially for sure.
And yet
powerful movie.
For such a sad movie, it's also really funny. Like,
you know what? I wouldn't say, and here's the thing, the weird thing that I wasn't expecting. When you picked Life Itself, I wasn't expecting the whole thing to be so sad. And we talked about the peaks and valleys with that big time. And it really is a roller coaster of emotions. But I actually thought for the most part, About Time was a relatively happy movie.
Yeah.
I would say there were more peaks than valleys, if you will, for the majority of the movie.
Yes.
But it's just the valleys that the movie did have were so low and so heavy.
It's not. It's weird because it's not like it's a it's something that we're all going to have to go through at some point. And so it's this level of sadness that we can all relate to. Because we all understand what it's like to fear for someone or to lose somebody in whatever way that might mean. And this movie just kind of explores that while at the same time exploring the flip side of that, which is, new relationships, new, children being born. It explores the good things of life and the unavoidable things. So what did you like about this?
Or did the chemistry between all of the actors and actresses.
Dude, Bill Nye.
Not just the main two. Dude, it's so funny because you got me with that last time. You got me with the Bill Nye
Bill
last
Nye,
time.
the science guy in this?
Yeah. And I know who you're talking about now. What movie was that? We were talking about Bill Nye. Oh, it was like Detective Pikachu, I think.
Detective Pikachu, and, that's what it was.
You're like, yeah, Bill Nye was in this. I was like, dude, I don't think we watched the same movie. The chemistry between all of the actors and actresses, I thought was insane. That guy, is it Domhnall? What's the guy's name?
The ginger? Is that a polite
guy.
term? I'm not sure if...
Hux,
yeah.
General Hux.
Yeah, General
He
Hux.
And Rachel McAdams, do you think they do, this is a question I had, do you think that they do chemistry readings for these films, or do you think they just pick somebody and go with it?
For the most part, I think all directors are going to do some sort of chemistry reading to see who can vibe off of it. I think they did that for Han Solo.
It seems like they had to have done some sort of research into trying to mix and match the chemistry in these characters, because the two main characters in this seemed like you totally bought their love story. Absolutely. As these quirky couple. I didn't have any issues with their relationship. Yeah, Mary and Tim. And then not only just them, but also with the family, the extended family too. The whole family had this kind of quirky, liberal, kind of down to earth.
Yeah, they were hippies,
kind of free spirit.
Kind of feeling,
free spirit vibe, and I really liked that. I felt like I knew those people.
But more
I felt like I'd been to that house. What's up,
dude? Just Bill Nye and his dad and Tim, dude. The chemistry between the two of them was unbelievable. I know. And the way that they both kind of had the same quirks. They were both like goofballs, and you could really see how they could be related in this movie. And they did such a good job casting everybody.
You know what? One of the things I liked about this movie too is the premise by which they introduced time travel. Mm-hmm. A lot of times it's somebody gets really stressed or angry or something, and then they just force it real hard, and then they time travel, or something dramatic happens, or it's this huge extravagant event. And this was simply the dad sitting down with Tim and saying, hey, just so you know, you can travel back and forward in time. Yeah, and it's easy to do. You can already do it. There was no real learning curve. He just went in and did it, and the movie progressed from there. Mm-hmm. It kept a really nice pace throughout the whole movie. That was it almost took the attention off of the time travel and just made it about the idea of like the conflict of life and death.
Yeah, it's like
because
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because the time travel part of it was such a quick moment. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, by the way, you can time travel. Yeah. And there you go. And now you're doing it.
That's what I was going to say, too, that it really doesn't even delve into the time traveling part or like who was the first one. We were just forced to accept, by the way, this family can time travel. And it does it well.
It's only
and
the
just
men.
presents. Yeah. And whatever.
Only the Y chromosomes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But because of the way they present it, we just immediately accept it. We're just like, oh, okay, I guess that's... And now we're in the movie, okay, and that's it. Like we don't think about it anymore; we just accept it, and they did that very well.
And Tim's character doesn't get super hung up on it either. He almost just sort of accepts it pretty quick. I know there's a little bit of a what and kind of a wow factor thing, but not very long. I mean, it's not like he's got to do all this training to figure out how to use the time travel, or he's in awe and he can't figure it out for 30 minutes of the movie. I mean, he time travels once. Messes around with it a little bit, and then he's just kind of in it.
Like even the dad says, like the how is the easy part.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So at first when I was watching this, I missed a crucial part that the dad said you can go backwards and forwards in time. I thought he said you could only go backwards.
No, he said you can't go forwards.
You can't go forward like into the future, but you can revisit parts of your life you've already lived.
Right. Exactly.
So you can go back 20 years. And then go forward 20 years again, but you couldn't go back 20 years and then go forward 40 years.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like you can only get to the point like that line, that leading rope that you
where
can't,
you are.
You can't go past.
You can't go past from where you are. And you can't go back further than when the last baby was born.
Right, because it'll like any little minute difference will change the sperm that ends up getting into the egg, and it'll be a completely different kid. That was freaky.
Yeah, dude.
A nice touch, but very freaky.
Yeah, where you're like, whoa, who the hell is this child? Like, why?
And a lot of the questions I was writing down throughout the movie, it actually answered for us, which I was pretty happy about. It all kind of tied together. Like, I wanted to know. Right, like what happens if the dad is traveling at the same time as the son, and whose world takes priority, and
or if somebody else goes in there with him.
Yeah, and I guess he can travel with other people. He does so with his sister. It was just an interesting plot, and I liked the fact that they emphasized the time travel, and then they move forward into the rest of the story, and it turns into a pretty good love story pretty rapidly.
Yeah,
they weren't too hung up on that, so I enjoyed that,
dude. Let's talk about that first date they had, though, in that like dark cellar thing.
So, funny story, man. I've actually done that. And
that's a real thing?
It is incredibly fun. That's a real thing. So when I did it, I was in high school, and it was a fundraiser for some sort of charity or something that helped blind people. And for their fundraiser, and they did this every year, and this is going to sound crazy, but I swear to you this is true. This is in Tallahassee, and it was one of the most fun things I've done like this. They had the Tallahassee SWAT team, like the police officers come, and they use like their night vision goggles, and they're actually your waiters and waitresses. I don't know, to be honest, if there were any female SWAT officers. I'm not sure. I don't know. But I know that the waiters and waitresses were members of the SWAT team, and they used those night vision goggles. But dude, it's crazy. You go with your group, and you put your hand on the person's shoulder in front of you, and then they basically put you through this curtain into like a big room, and it is pitch black. I mean, you can't see your hand in front of your face, dude. It is pitch black, and they serve you. You got to figure it out, man. You got to kind of feel it, and they tell you what it is, and it is. I kid you not, it is an incredible example of what I could imagine it would be like, at least for a short period in time, to be blind.
See, Miranda said the same thing. I was like, how do they eat? Like, how is it possible for them to eat? And she was like, the same way a blind person does, and that kind of put me in my place. I was like, oh, that's... You kind
of feel it out, and I'll tell you, it's pretty rough at first, but by like the dessert, by the end of the meal, I'm not going to say you're good at it, but you're better at it than you would expect you to be.
Because I can imagine what, like, it's not the putting the fork, like the hand-eye coordination's there. That's, you're used to that. But finding where to cut the food and,
Finding where to cut the food and figuring out what the hell you're eating. Like, am I scooping up salad right now? Am I scooping up like a piece of chicken? Am I scooping up, potatoes? It's not easy.
I want to see the floor of that place at the end of the day.
Oh, exactly. And people, look, dude, when they finally turned the lights on, people had stains all over their shirt. Like, people had been, because you don't even know, like, people had spilled like stuff on them, and they don't even know it's there. And it's a fun thing, man. But it's funny because I had a feeling that would come up, and I was pretty excited to say that I've actually done that before, like a pitch black, a blind dinner, I think is what they called it.
As I was watching it, I was like, I wonder if this is a real thing. So yeah, apparently it is.
And when I did it, I was with some friends, so it wasn't really that kind of thing, but it would make for a pretty awesome first date kind of thing, because you're forced to just get to know somebody. You don't know what they look like at all. It is kind of a cool, like, blind date idea almost.
What, and just to kind of like digress here for a moment, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. What memory do you think you would relive if you could?
Yeah, dude. And it's funny you say that, because that's exactly what I was thinking when I was watching this movie. I don't have kids yet, so I could go back literally to any point.
Thank God, am I right?
Yeah, exactly. Little bastards running around here.
Little ankle biters.
Yeah. I think I'd go back and probably enjoy some of the times that me and my friends were just goofing around in high school. Those are some of the times that I think of really fondly. I think I would go back to when I was just a little kid, and my imagination still ran rampant, and again, me and friends would get together, and just there was no stress, no worries whatsoever, and just playing outside and hanging out and stuff. Man, I don't know. Yeah, I would just probably go back to simpler times and just enjoy being in the moment if I was kind of aware of it. What about you?
Well, you mentioned high school, and that brought up a memory back when I was in like 6th grade. I remember having my first like sleepover. Like, oh yeah. Like, not me, but I went over to somebody's house, and it was like, no joke, it was like me and 10 other kids. And we were all literally around this big screen TV playing Twisted Metal on the PlayStation, just taking turns. Nice. And then we played Rogue Squadron on the Nintendo GameCube later that night. So I just remember
isn't
that.
Twisted Metal the like car game where you're like a car with weapons and stuff on it? I think I remember playing that on like a PSP back in the day.
I believe that. Yeah, because I remember it came out like Twisted Metal Black was like the newest one that came out. And it had like the flaming skull clown thing on the front. But I remember that, or I would totally go back to my family vacation. We took a vacation when I was like 14 to the Pacific Northwest of the U.S. Man. And I remember being in Crescent City and the hotel we had, dude. Holy crap. And I was really into drawing. Like I had a sketchbook and I took around it with me everywhere. But I remember we walked in and you walk into the lobby and in the back of the hotel, they have this like sitting area with like a grand piano and stuff, really pretty. The hotel was on a cliff, and then the back wall was all glass, so you could just see the ocean. And I remember getting there at sunset, and it was beautiful. So I just sat there the rest of the day and just sketched, and it was just, I remember that trip fondly. So,
dude, I would go back. You know what I'd do just for shits and giggles? I'd go back to the first night that you and I met each other on freaking Xbox, dude. Yep. Just to relive that. That was so funny, man. That whole night was so funny. I remember I said something in Spanish, like you said something about Disney, and I was like, "Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas."
Yeah, and I was like,
and you were
no way.
Yeah, you were like, "Wait, what?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, man, I'm from Orlando." And you're like, "Dude."
Yeah.
I remember that, man. I got a question for you. If we're gonna digress a little bit, I've got one for you as well. If you had, and this is a question for the viewers too, if you had the ability to time travel in that way, you could go backwards and forwards as much within the realms of the life you've already lived as much as possible. You couldn't go into the future. How much of your day-to-day do you think you would constantly go back and try to fix to make everything perfect? And how much of it do you think you would just let flow naturally?
I feel like at first I would go back a lot.
I think so too.
I think at first I would be like, oh, this is amazing. And I would go back just to try and see what I could get away with and what I couldn't. And people's reactions, avoiding getting punched by that guy, things like that. But then eventually...
Or punching that guy and then going back in time and never doing it again.
Yeah, fuck that.
Before he can hit you back.
Fuck you, Jimmy.
You hit Jimmy in the face and then go back in time before he has a chance to hit you back. That's pretty much it.
But I don't know. I think eventually it would become. I think the lesson learned in this movie is that there's only so much you can change before you're in one way or another still moving forward in time. You're still losing your days by focusing on other things rather than the present. And I think that the big lesson to learn is to be in the now and treat each day, like it's meant to be treated, which is, just kind of one shot moving forward, one step at a time kind of a thing. And yeah, but I think at first, dude, absolutely. I'd be going back all the time just to just to see what you can do,
Yeah, just what you could get away with. And I think everybody would, the having the ability to basically have no consequences for your actions, or to be able to make everything perfect, or not have any second chance, or not have as many second chances as you wanted to get things right, would be a dangerous tool. But I think at a certain point,
especially
it would get
in relationships.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it would get boring. I think there's something about the unknown in life that makes it a little bit more worth living. I agree. And I think you see that even in things that we do day to day, even in take video games, for example. If you had a game that was too easy and you could always just go right back, fix it, and go forward, I don't think that's something you would continue to play.
That's
just
a pretty
like
good
with
analogy.
life, if you could constantly just go back and fix everything and your life was perfect, don't get me wrong, I do think I would do things to at least set myself up to have a little bit more, to be able to afford a little more things in life maybe than I currently do.
Yeah.
But, at a certain point, I don't know if you would find gratification in that. If that's how you decided to live your life, at a certain point, you'd long for, struggle again. You'd long for the risk of not having a second chance.
Well, imagine being able to redo that interview you bombed, or not buy that one house that you bought when, 2 days later you found an even more perfect, things like that. But I think you're right. Eventually it does become boring, because then what risk is there, and what can't you do? I think it'd be the most powerful tool. I mean, you'd sleep well at night, that's for sure. If you knew, no matter what happens tomorrow, even if something horrible happens, my kid gets run over by a car, my dog gets, eaten by a bear or whatever, something crazy, you can just literally go back. That was the weirdest
circumstance ever. But you could literally just go back and change that. So I don't know. I mean, I do think I would use it pretty extensively at first, but at a certain point, you would probably get bored with that. Last thing I'll say on this before we can get kind of back into the actual plot of this, I watched, I think it was like a video that GoPro put up on their YouTube channel, and I'll see if I can find the link so I can send it to you. We can try to link it down below. I don't know who did the speech. This is kind of a lacking information quote, and I don't know if it's a really famous speech or not, but basically somebody was talking about the idea that if you could live forever, okay, even if you died and went to heaven or whatever, your idea of afterlife is, and it was an eternity, whatever it was, at a certain point, even if you were in paradise of some sort, you would get tired of that, and you would long for a life of normalcy, a life of risk, a life of unknown, a life of not mediocrity, but a life of just a life of unknowns and risks and worry and fear. And I think at a certain point, you would try to live out you would go back and live out these lives until eventually you'd lived out so many lives that you would manifest and live out the exact life that you're living right now, with all of the unknowns and the fears and the struggles and the issues that you may have. You would still eventually long for that, because an eternity of perfection and peace and worry-free, life, you would get bored of that, I think.
Well, how do you appreciate the good without the bad?
Yeah,
it becomes
exactly.
It becomes blasé. It just becomes nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. There were a couple things about this one. Just kind of more things on the nose. Like, I feel like the dad was relatively hands off. All things considered. I mean, the dad didn't really seem to go out and stop a ton of bad things from happening. He doesn't really warn his son about anything. But I think that also comes from that kind of free spirit that these characters seem to have. Like, the dad just seemed to want this son to be able to live his own life and make his own mistakes.
We don't know what he's changed. Maybe his son got into a terrible car accident at one point and he went back and changed it, and we're only seeing it from the kid or his kid's point of view. We don't know what his dad has done or hasn't done. Like, we know that he has time traveled it before, but we also know that he's learned to appreciate the gift and try not to use it, which is what he tells his son at the end, like, hey, try to live each day exactly as you did. And if you go back, only go back to appreciate what you didn't appreciate the first time.
You could never tell anybody that you had the power move forward, because if you did, especially your significant other, they would constantly question every good thing that happened. They would question if it was something that wasn't supposed to happen and you went back and changed.
Well, even he questioned it at one point when his dad, he was like, well, have we had this conversation before? And he was like, yeah. So, I mean, you're right. Yeah, people would question it left and right. They'd wonder what you've changed and what you haven't.
Exactly. Who are you really? Who am I really? What was I supposed? Were we actually even meant to be together? Did you kind of force this by doing it over and over until it worked? I mean, it's a weird concept of time travel, and it is a little bit scary. But I can't say that it would be a horrible thing to be able to do. It would be a strange life.
Yeah. You said there were two things.
I'm trying to remember what the other one was. If I know it's hard to say as us, being in our 20s, but if you had this power, how long, like how many years do you think you would live before eventually you were just ready to maybe be done with it? I don't know that that's even possible for us to answer right now.
Ooh, I don't know, man. I feel like you could go years without using the power, and then something would happen and you would use it to try and change, like somebody getting into a car accident, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Things like bombing. Dude, it kind of makes you think in the same way that Rumor from
from Umbrella Academy?
Umbrella Academy, thank you. God, I don't know why.
Yeah.
Like where she has this ability to make anyone do whatever she wants. How far do you go before you stop using that?
Right.
It eventually could become a curse if you're using it for everything and it starts affecting your life, like, removing the kid that you had and replacing it with a different kid. Like, you run that risk. Like, he even said in the movie, we haven't ruined civilization yet. Which leaves the question, like, you could potentially change something that ruins your life in the future. You don't know.
I'd be really scared to mess up.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be scared, even when they're doing the father-son walk, and it's really sad. What if that kid fell weird when they were running down that cliff and, like, hit his nuts on a rock or something like that, and, like, then he goes forward and his kid is totally different.
Or he doesn't have a kid.
I mean, it's just... you'd just be so worried, man, because if you went back too far on accident, if you accidentally thought of like the wrong point in time, you could lose everybody that's important to you, depending on how you. What if you get stuck? What if, you get to a point where you have grandkids or great grandkids even, and then you accidentally go back too far and they're just all gone. Yeah. You can't get them back. You go back to the future and they're completely different. It is a little bit of a scary idea of time travel.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, was there anything about the movie that you didn't like?
I think that the movie, I'm not going to say it's a perfect movie because it's not. At times it can feel a little too goofy. I think that the parents themselves feel a little, the parents as a family, as like a family unit, feels a little two dimensional, and that everything is hunky-dory with them. You don't really get too much of a glimpse into the life of the parents or anything, which is fine. It's whatever, because the movie's not about them. But overall, the movie just feels very kind of rose-colored for the most part. It does a good job at like dipping into these moments of darkness when you have, like when he messes up their first date and he has to go find her again, or his sister gets into the car accident. It definitely dips, but every time it does, it takes away from the feeling that there's something dangerous because he can just go back and change it. And so it kind of takes away from that level of danger up until you're hit with the news that his dad is dying, and soon he won't be able to see his dad at all, which is okay because the movie's not a drama. It's a romantic comedy, really, at the heart of it. Yep. It's what it is.
Yep.
But no, I mean, honestly, I think the movie's pretty well done. I think the charisma between everybody, the chemistry that's there is very well done. Everybody meshed very well. All of the friends, the family, the acting is all there. So everybody just works together. You sense that there is actual like caring for each other. The writing is good. The laughs are great. There's a lot of funny moments, dude. Like when they're their baby's like first or second birthday or whatever, and the guy has the giant bear, and he's like, yeah, they say never bring a gift that's smaller than the baby, and the writer's next to him.
Fuck off.
Yeah, he's like, fuck you, Rory. It's just little tiny bear in his lap. That's great. Yeah. No, I mean it's hard to fault the movie on anything substantial other than little things here and there with writing, little loopholes that I'm sure people have found in the time traveling thing. Because there's always going to be loopholes. Time travel is a weird subject, but they do a good job of kind of making it as simple as possible, setting up a couple of ground rules, and then you just accept it. Because if you're going to go into this movie saying, well, that's not possible, you're already starting off wrong, because the movie's about
you have
the family,
you
not
have to
about the time
the
travel.
premise of time travel.
Exactly.
You have to. The same way with Star Wars, you got to accept that you're watching what's going on.
Exactly.
You can't do that with every movie. I'll tell you what actually irked me a little bit about this one from the writing standpoint. You start to feel, or I started to feel like the movie was trying to make you feel more sorry for Tim having to face these life and death things than everybody else, even though Tim gets all these extra chances to say goodbye, and he's got this safety net versus everybody else who's actually just living. Those are things we just have to face in our day-to-day lives. We don't get the chance to go back and have a second chance, and I feel like the movie was really trying to play on your heartstrings where, oh, you got to feel worse for him because now he's going back and having these final conversations with his father. And some people may say that would be harder because it's coming and like it's you're forced to say goodbye like that. But the truth is, I mean, when his father let everybody know about the cancer, Tim was the only one who got the chance to spend as much time with him as he wanted to. Essentially, he got to say goodbye to him on his own terms. Everybody else was forced to just deal the hand they were, or play the hand that life dealt them, man, and go through it the one time. So I will say I did start to feel a little like I started to almost roll my eyes a little bit about the movie's really playing on the fact that we're supposed to feel bad for Tim in this whole thing. But I mean, the truth is in my opinion, he's got an easier time with this than a lot of other people because he gets to go back and go back and go back until he's mentally ready to let go.
True.
That's not a luxury that normal human beings are gifted.
No. And I think that's a lesson that his dad was trying to teach him at one point, because
I think so. Yeah, I think that's a good point.
His dad mentioned to him, he said, Tim said to him, like so we can't go back, like we can't go back any farther, like when he's learning about the kids, that you can't go back farther than the kid, and he's he's like, we can't go back beyond that, like we just have to remember, like we have to remember everything the way everybody else does, and he says, just like everybody else.
I mean, you can go back, you're just going to lose your kid.
Yeah.
And the sad part is that I think there's a lot of people out there that are so scared of death that they would, if they found themselves on their deathbed, they would go back to their youth and give up a child. That's fucking dark. Holy shit. I don't know. I guess it depends on your relationship with your kid, but I guarantee you there's some people out there that would choose to go back and give up that child that they had over having to face their mortality, man. Humans just, you fight it like everything does. Everything alive fights, being dead. Yeah. You want to stay alive to as much as you can. That's a very human thing. It's a very biological thing to try and stay alive, try and survive.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. That is, I think, a lesson that he was trying to teach him. It did get a little bit sappy for me where I got to the point, it was like, okay, this is sad, and I get why it's sad, and I like this story, but I'm not sure that I feel worse for Tim than I do, say, Tim's mom for having to lose her husband, in this whole thing and not getting a chance to go back and say goodbye.
Well, they all had like a few weeks with him, so it's not like it. But I mean, imagine if he had died in a car accident instead. Then you're right. Yeah, Tim would have gotten the chance to go back, and none of the family would have. Like that's
everybody
a privilege
else would have just
gets.
lost him.
Yeah.
Right. I felt like it was definitely, having this time travel ability is for sure more of a privilege than a curse.
Yeah. Although then you think about it on the flip side, like how do you like go from being able to see whoever you want, see your loved ones, and then have to give that up suddenly because a child was just born? Like that is something that he has to go through by himself. It's a gift, sure, but it's also something that becomes a part of you, and it physically is a part of him, right. And so in some ways he's having to go through his own ordeal.
Sure, he's got his own set of challenges for sure. You can't diminish his struggle.
Yeah.
Was the loopy uncle supposed to be able to go back in time too?
I was wondering that too, and he also acted a little odd. So I don't know because it's his uncle, so I'm assuming it's his dad's brother. So
yeah, unless it was his mom's brother.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Which would make a little more sense.
Out of the bloodline, so he couldn't go back in time. I don't know. I'd have to watch it again to see. I don't remember if that was supposed to be his dad's brother or his mom's brother.
But we got no hint that he could time travel. So
no, we didn't. He was just kind of this loopy dude. We never really got much more out of that.
But overall the film is good. It's not perfect. It feels a little campy and rose-colored at times, but it's a romantic comedy. The chemistry between the two of them is awesome. Between Mary and Tim. And you really do care for their characters. They do a really good job of having this like natural dialogue that seems like it could have been improv. They're just funny. They're just really funny together.
They are.
They're adorable. You really care for them, and there's nothing in particular that I can think of that stands out that I said, while watching this, and I've seen this movie multiple times. I've never seen it and been like, oh, this was bad. But there is a level of depth that it doesn't go past.
Right. And I think that's how it's able to keep the comedy essence.
Exactly, because it's not a drama. It's not a sad movie.
If it goes too deep like that, if it gets too dark for too long, then it's going to turn into a drama, and the movie's going to end up being 45 minutes longer. And I'm really glad they did not take that.
Because it was already 2 hours and something.
And you know what, man? As far as rom-coms go, I loved it.
Yeah,
I loved it. And now we've watched now Marriage Story, Life Itself, and About Time. So 3 really sad fucking movies, man. I don't know that Marriage Story was like technically a rom-com. I think that was more of a drama. But Life Itself, again, I don't know. I guess that one would kind of be a drama too. But it's still some comedy in that. I don't know. That was a weird one. That maybe a rom-com on that one. I'm not sure. But you're right. There was a level of depth that it didn't quite get to. But the story that it did tell, did an incredible job of being simultaneously quirky, funny, deep.
The playwright,
deep enough.
That playwright is amazing.
Yeah.
When he helps him,
he
helps him, and then he went through that situation like 3 times to try and help this guy have like the best night of his life, and he's like, "Hey, there's the prick who left halfway through." It's like, fuck you, dude.
I know.
This is my daughter. You can have sex with her if you like. Apparently, everybody else has.
Yeah. Apparently, everybody else has. Woo! Oh my God! I mean, really, what I got from this is it's just a thought-provoking movie, and it's going to make you start to question some existential things. You're going to want to wonder how would you use these powers? Let us know in the comments down below. What do you guys think you would do if you had these powers? Some funny stuff, of course. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would definitely live it up at least for a little while. You know, if you could just go back in time, I don't see the harm in being able to do things with no repercussions, essentially, and just be able to live a crazy life for a little while. But I do think just being the people that we are, we'd probably settle back down pretty quick and just kind of get back into a nice flow of life. Yeah, I mean, the critic score for this is critics don't like rom-coms, apparently.
Because they can get cliche. There's a formula for these types of movies.
Yeah, there are. Not horrible, but the critic score on Rotten Tomatoes for About Time is a 68%. Which I think to put it in the 60s is kind of harsh. I think the movie deserves a little better than
68,
that,
you might as well round it up to a 7 out of 10. So
yeah, fair enough. And then audience score 81%. So people generally like it. Yeah, people generally like this movie. Now, I think rightfully so.
I was curious. I did go on. Like the critic score is out of 150 something, whereas the audience score is like 15,000 reviews or something. So I think there's something to be said that the more people watched, the higher the score. Yeah, the larger sample size, the better result you're going to get. Whereas if you're looking at this movie compared to, some of the best movies out there, no, it's not going to be as good as some of the greatest movies ever made. But it's a good movie, and it's thought-provoking. And I might as well just say what my score is.
They didn't have to do that shit to us, man.
But
they didn't have to do that to us, dude.
No, especially if you're somebody who has someone in your life that you can see in that same light that Tim sees his father. At the end, man, that's just it's rough because it makes you think. It makes you start to question. You're right. It's an existential crisis kind of a thing where you're questioning not only your mortality but the mortality of the people around you. While at the same time, the movie is pushing the idea that there's nothing you can do, even with the powers of time travel. His father is still going to die, and you have to accept that there's nothing you can do about it. And again, ultimately, the message of the movie is that you have to take it one day at a time, just like the rest of the world, because no matter what, that's what you have, powers or not. Yeah. Overall, dude, I think this movie is great, especially when it comes to romantic comedies. As a romantic comedy, the cinematography was amazing. I think there were some beautiful moments, especially with like the steady cam. There's some moments where it really has this like shakiness to it, especially at the end, the last shot. It just feels a little more like you're in his shoes, like you're there with him, as opposed to seeing it through a camera when it does that. And I think that's very beautifully shot. There were moments where like the camera was a little too bright, like they overexposed everything to kind of make it feel a little more beautiful and airy, but like it was literally like blown out whites. So the cinematography was beautiful in some aspects and not quite there in others. That could have just been a director's choice. So I'm not going to be too harsh on that. Acting was there, casting was there, the story, the writing, it's all there. It's a fun movie, and it does reach an emotional level. So overall, man, especially when it comes to romantic comedies, I'm gonna give this a 9 out of 10.
I think I'm right there with you, man. I like that score. Coming at it from just the common man point of view, I mean, did we sit down? Did we watch it through in one take? Did we enjoy it? Was it entertaining? Was it as a rom-com? Yeah. Did it hit all the emotional levels and the comedic levels? 100%. Like, my wife was crying.
Looking at it,
I didn't shed a tear, man.
Yeah,
I was
you didn't shed a single tear.
Super stoic throughout the whole thing.
You grew more chest here, yeah.
Right, right. My chest is
like, as a romantic comedy movie, was it entertaining? Yes. Unless like you have to like. I can't stand people who are like, I can't watch. Like, if somebody were to watch this movie and be like, this movie fucking sucked, you didn't watch the right movie. You didn't watch the movie. You went into it with a closed
if somebody
mind.
out there, if somebody out there really didn't like it, I'd like to know why. Maybe people thought that the idea of the time travel in this movie was a little too far-fetched. Maybe people didn't like that, but I think you got to move past that. You got to accept the premise of the movie, and then
why would you
go from
watch
there.
A movie about time travel and walk into it? Like, why would you walk into a movie knowing that it's about time travel and then hate the time travel aspect like that?
Yeah, agreed. I mean, you gotta accept. You gotta be willing to take some things that they give
you
and run
with any
with it,
movie you watch. You have to try and accept the world that they are presenting to you, and then after the movie's done, question whether or not you bought it. Unless it's so awful that you can't even get through the movie, which this movie is not that. This movie is very well done. It's clever. It's quirky. It's it's cute and it's sad and happy all at the same time. So yeah. So
Yeah,
you're there
agreed.
too.
I'm with you, man. I think for a rom-com, for how much we enjoyed it, we really like. I mean, I would watch it again, dude. And I don't normally say that with rom-coms. I'm not often in that boat. I'm kind of surprised actually at the score I think I'm going to give this one, because I'm somewhere between an 8.5 and a 9. And to me, 8.5 seems a little low. 9 seems, I'm not going to lie, 9 seems maybe a little bit high.
And I completely agree with you. But as I can't think of another romantic comedy that I think is better.
I'm sure I could think of something, but I don't know. I think I'm going to actually give this one an 8.5. Okay. I think I'm leaning a little more towards the 8.5 than the 9, just because I do think I do think there was a little something there that maybe a little bit of depth that it did lack a little bit for me. But dude, an 8.5 for a rom-com for me is a pretty generous score. That's not my genre. That is really not my genre. But I really enjoyed it. Like, for example, even, I don't know, I'm trying to think of other romantic comedies, and it just depends. Like, do you want more of the comedy? Do you want more of the romance? Because they're all kind of different. Some rom-coms are really fucking sad, and then there's a little bit of comedy in there. Some of them are really funny, and then there's a little, there's 50 First Dates, which is a little bit sad with her memory thing, but it's mostly
more
a comedy
than it is,
Exactly. And then there's this, which is a pretty good blend. I would say this is a pretty good blend. It didn't go too deep. For me, I think an 8.5, and I'm in the middle.
See, I'm the same as you. Like, I'm at like a 9 leaning towards 8.5, but you're 8.5 leaning towards the 9. It's somewhere in between that, I think. It
is. Yeah, it is. But you guys, that's our review of About Time. Leave us leave a thumbs up down below if you cried during this movie. If the walk on the beach got to you,
can I get
drop a thumbs up.
An F in the chat?
Yeah, F in the chat, please. Let us know also in the comments. Let us know what you guys think about this one. Did you love it? Did you hate it? If so, why? Why not? Feel free to leave an angry comment on our Instagram. We'll respond to an extent and then no longer respond. You know who we're talking to.
Yeah.
But let us know, you guys. All right, Chris, cue time travel. We're going back in time. 1, 2, 3. What's going on, everybody? Critic and the Common Man here. Today, we are reviewing. We just do like a different review, like a complete 45 minutes of a different review. We're reliving the whole thing, man. But that's it. Drop a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Fair is fair. There's little Tenzin. Drop a thumbs up, down for little Tenzin. Oh my God, he's not that little anymore.
No, dude, he's pretty big. 30-something pounds, I would say.
All right, you guys. Critic and the Common Man. We are out of here. All right, you guys. Critic and the Common Man. We are out of here. All right, you guys. Critic and the Common Man. We are out of here.
We're stuck in a time loop.
We're stuck in a time loop. See you guys.